Hello, this is Ms. Heaney again for your next lesson. This lesson is on page 86, so please open your binders to page 86. And in this lesson, we are going to learn how to solve what's called multi-step equations. Multi-step equations. So far in class, we've done one-step equations, where you just need to do one thing to get your answer. We've done two-step equations, that's the previous video, where there were two steps of work to find your answer. In this case, there are more than two steps of work to find your answer. You can see that these equations are a little bit more complex. We have problems where there are variables on both sides of the equal sign. That's something that we'll have to deal with. There's also problems where there's things that need to be simplified on one side of the equal sign or another before you can actually start solving. Some of the steps are going to be the same as before, so like addition or subtraction to each side of the equation, we're going to see that again. Multiplying or dividing a number on each side of the equation, we could use that too, but there's a couple new ones that will come up as well. One is what happens if there's parentheses. Oops, this is missing an S. Parentheses. There's a couple ways we could deal with parentheses. We could use distributive property. We can also get rid of the number outside of the parentheses by multiplying by the reciprocal of that number. Either method works, but we'll have to do something about parentheses. Another thing that we might use as a step is to combine like terms. And I want to be really specific that we're only combining like terms on one side of an equal sign. We don't want to combine, for example, 8x and 7x. They're not on the same side of the equal sign. They're on opposite sides of the equal sign. So we want to be really careful about combining like terms as one of our steps. All right, for these problems, we are going to show our work on the left-hand side. We are going to give a justification for our work on the right-hand side. So these are going to be some of our justifications. What are we doing to both sides of the equation? All right, let's start with number 1. Right now we have 8x minus 2 equals negative 9 plus 7x. The first thing that I notice is that there are variables on both sides of the equal sign. 8x is over here, 7x is over here. When we're solving an equation, our ultimate goal is to get the variable by itself, isolate the variable. Well, we can't do that if the variable is showing up in two different places like this. We have to get the variable by itself in one spot. So the first thing that we need to deal with is the fact that there's variables on both sides. So I would like to cancel one of these two terms in order to get all of the variables in one place. And I have a choice how I could do that. I could either subtract 8x from both sides, that would cancel 8x over here, or I could subtract 7x from both sides, which would cancel 7x over here. In this case, I would probably choose, if I had to choose which one to subtract, I would subtract 7x because it's less than 8x. And if I subtract 7x from both sides, I won't end up with any negatives around the x's, which if I can avoid a negative number, I might as well do so. All right, so let's do that. Let's subtract 7x from both sides. So I'm going to show my work right here, minus 7x minus 7x. And on the other side, I want to say what property I'm using. In this case, I am using the subtraction property. Specifically, the subtraction property of equality, which means that if I have positive 7x here and I subtract 7x, that they cancel out and make 0. But I don't need to write all that, just subtraction property is fine. All right, so what does this leave me with? I have 8x minus 7x. That would be 1x, but we usually don't write the 1 in front of x. We usually just write it as x. I still have minus 2. I still have an equal sign, and I still have -9. And for my step, all I really did was I just simplified the subtraction. So I'll just say that that was just simplify. That's all we really did. All right, x minus 2 equals -9. This looks much easier than what we had before. I still want to get x by itself. I can do that by canceling this -2. I'll cancel that by adding 2 to both sides. +2 plus 2 on both sides of the equal sign. The step that we just did was the addition property. -2 plus 2 cancels each other out. So I have x all alone on the left-hand side of the equal sign. The right side I can simplify, so I'll write down my step is simplify. -9 plus 2 is -7. I now have x by itself equaling some number. So there's my answer, x equals -7. Let's look at problem 2. A plus 5 equals -5a plus 5. Again, I have variables on both sides of my equal sign. I do not want variables in two different places here. So I'm going to have to cancel one of them in order to carry on with this problem. I have a choice. I can either subtract a from both sides, or I could add 5a to both sides to cancel this -5a. I'm a fan of leaving things positive, so instead of subtracting a, that would give us -6a over here. I don't really want that. So instead, I think I'll add 5a to both sides. Plus 5a plus 5a. The step that we're doing here is the addition property. -5a plus 5a, those things cancel each other out. On the left side, a plus 5a, remember this is the same as 1a, so that comes out to 6a. We still have plus 5 equals 5. And that step was just simplify. We were simplifying the addition that we had set up in the previous step. My next set of work, I want to start, now that I have a in just one place, I want to start getting a by itself. So I'm going to have to get rid of this 6, I'm going to have to get rid of this plus 5. This is now a two-step equation. So if we remember what we were doing for two-step equations, my next step would be to subtract 5 from both sides to cancel the plus 5. That is subtraction property. Then that simplifies to 6a on the left. 5 minus 5 on the right is 0. Let's simplify. All right, my very last step to get a by itself, I want to get rid of that 6. So I'm going to divide both sides by 6. 6 and 6 cancel, leaving a all by itself, just like I wanted. And this one was division property. And in my very last step, I'm going to simplify 0 divided by 6. 0 divided by 6 is just 0. So I get a equals 0 as my answer. Number 3, 4m minus 4 equals 5m. Once again, I have variables on opposite sides of the equal sign. So I would like to cancel either 4m or 5m. So I can either subtract 4m from each side or subtract 5m from each side. 4m is less, so I'll go with that. I'm going to subtract 4m from both sides. Those cancel. That was using subtraction property. And let me see what's left over. I still have minus 4 equals 5m minus 4m is 1m. Looks like we're done. and that step was simplify. We got lucky there. 5m minus 4m is just 1m. There's m all by itself on the right-hand side of the equal sign, and it looks like m equals negative 4. So we're all done with that one. Let's look at the next page at number 4. By the way, if any of this is going too fast, remember one of the nice things about a video is you can pause it. You can go back and re-see something or rehear something. So feel free to pause when you need to, feel free to rewind when you need to, whatever you need to do. And if you do have questions, jot them down, make sure to ask me in person so that I can get those questions answered for you. All right, number 4 on the top of page 87. This one, we have our variable p in 1, 2, 3 different places. We don't want that. We want p to only be in one place. So there's definitely some simplifying that I need to do here. Now I can start subtracting p from both sides and things like that. But if I take a look, I'm going to ignore the left side for a moment. If I take a look just on the right side of the equal sign, this right side is not even simplified. I have 5p plus 3p. Those are like terms. So the very first thing I want to do is condense the right side of this equation. And I'm going to do that by combining like terms. So when I combine like terms, I haven't done anything to the left side, so p minus 1 is still there. The right side, 5p plus 3p is 8p minus 8. That minus 8 doesn't have a p attached to it, so it's just still minus 8. It's not like terms with this other term. All right, now I have the left side of the equation is as simplified as it can be, p minus 1. The right side of the equation is simplified as it can be, 8p minus 8. So now I need to get to the task of getting p all in one place and then getting p by itself. So I have a choice here. I could cancel p by subtracting 1p from each side. I could cancel 8p by subtracting 8p from each side. I'll go with the 1p just because it'll end up with a positive result. So I'm going to subtract p from each side. That's using subtraction property. P minus p cancels. On the left side, I have negative 1. That minus doesn't go away. It belongs to the 1. So negative 1 equals, I need to simplify 8p minus p. That's 8 minus 1, which is 7p. I still have minus 8. All right, so now p is all in one spot. I want to isolate this variable. So I'm going to have to get rid of this 7. I'm going to have to get rid of this minus 8. I'm working backwards from PEMDAS. I'm undoing this math. So I'm actually not going to start with the multiplication. I'm going to start with the subtraction. And the way I undo subtraction is by adding. So I'm going to now add 8 to both sides, plus 8 plus 8, minus 8 plus 8 cancels. That step is the addition property. I added the same thing to both sides of the equal sign. If I simplify, the left side, negative 1 plus 8 is positive 7 equals 7p. Very convenient. We're almost there. P is almost by itself, but I got to get rid of that 7. So my very last step is going to be to divide by 7 on each side to cancel the 7 in front of the p. This is division property. And so those cancel. On the right side, p is all by itself. On the left side, 7 divided by 7 is 1, and that step was simplify. All right, let's look at number 5. Number 5 looks very fun. We have a bunch of things going on. I'll look at this side of the equals sign first. We have a bunch of things going on the left side of the equal sign. I see parentheses. I see maybe some terms that will eventually be combined. A lot of things happening there. The right side isn't quite as exciting. 4 plus 2x. There's no like terms. There's no parentheses. There's nothing really to simplify there. So we're going to leave that be for right now and focus on the left-hand side, which is where all the chaos is happening. So first thing I want to take care of is those parentheses. I see 2 times parentheses 4x minus 3. Think about what could we do to simplify these parentheses. If you're thinking distributive property, I think you're right. I can distribute this 2 times 4x and 2 times minus 3. So let's do that. I'm going to use distributive property. I'm going to distribute 2 times 4x, which is 8x. And I'm going to distribute 2 times minus 3, which is minus 6. Cool, no more parentheses. I still have minus 8. Let's not forget about that. And I still have the right side of this equal sign, 4 plus 2x, which we haven't done anything with yet. We will, but not yet. All right, so now let's look at what we have on the left side of the equal sign. 8x minus 6 minus 8. I think we're not quite fully simplified yet. That minus 6 minus 8, those are like terms, so let's go ahead and combine those. I'm going to combine like terms, specifically the minus 6 and the minus 8, just to the left of the equal sign. So I have 8x, which is a different term, because it has an x with it, and minus 6 minus 8, that would be minus 14. All right, let's take a look at the left side of the equal sign now. Now I have 8x minus 14. There's no parentheses to simplify. There's no like terms. That's as simplified as I'm going to get on that side. And the right side is still simplified already, 4 plus 2x. So now there's no simplifying that I could do on each side. Instead, I want to focus on the fact that there's variables on both sides. So next thing I need to check is for variables on both sides. They're there. So I need to cancel either 8x or 2x. So I could either subtract 8x from both sides, or I could subtract 2x from both sides. I'm going to go with the 2x because it's smaller. So I'm going to write minus 2x to cancel 2x. I'm going to also subtract 2x from the other side. And notice how I'm writing it under 8x because these two are like terms. This is subtraction property. And let's simplify here. So 8x minus 2x is 6x. We still have minus 14, and we still have equals 4. Now I have a two-step equation. I have 6 times x. I'll have to deal with that 6. I'll also have to take a step to deal with the minus 14. So my next step is to deal with the 14. I'm going to add 14 to both sides, plus 14 plus 14 to cancel there. That is the addition property. On the left side, I have 6x left over. On the right side, I'm going to simplify 4 plus 14, which is 18. And we're almost there. Notice how x is almost by itself. I just need to divide both sides by 6. That's division property. And I'll be done. So 6 and 6 cancel. I get x equals. I need to simplify 18 divided by 6. 18 divided by 6 is 3. So there's my answer. Notice that in each line of work, With each step, this equation is getting simpler and simpler and simpler. We start off with something very complex. We take a couple steps to combine things and make things less complex, then even less complex, and then quite simple, and then down to our answer. So each step that you do should be getting the problem to be an easier and easier problem for the next step. Let's move on to number 6. 3n minus 5 equals negative 8 times parentheses 6 plus 5n. Looking at the left side, that's already simplified. There's no like terms. There's no parentheses. So 3n minus 5, there's nothing to do there. Now let's look at the right side. Negative 8 times parentheses 6 plus 5n. There's parentheses there. We need to deal with that. So first thing that I'm checking is to see if there's anything to simplify on each of the individual sides. In this case, there is. Negative 8 times 6 plus 5n. On this one, I want to distribute negative 8 times 6 and negative 8 times 5n. So this step is distributive property. The left side is still 3n minus 5. The right side, negative 8 times 6 is negative 48. Negative 8 times 5n is negative 40n. All right, so now check again. Is each side of this equation as simplified as it can possibly get on its own? So left side, there's nothing to simplify here. There's no like terms, there's no parentheses. Right side, there's no like terms, there's no parentheses. So I'm done simplifying the individual sides. Now I'm going to have to start adding and subtracting things from one side to the other to get things by themselves. Next thing I check is there's variables on two sides. I need to deal with that. So I can either subtract 3n from both sides to cancel the 3n, or I could add 40n to both sides to cancel the minus 40n. I like the idea of getting rid of this negative, so I'm going to add 40n to both sides. That's using addition property. And I'm going to simplify 3n plus 40n. That comes out to 43n. I still have minus 5, and I still have negative 48. I now have all my variables in one place. So now it's just a task of getting that variable by itself. To do that, remember our skills for solving a two-step equation. I'm going to cancel this minus 5 by adding 5 to both sides. That is the addition property. So then I have 43n equals negative 48 plus 5. That comes out to negative 43. That's simplifying. The negative 48 plus 5. And then my very last step to get n by itself is to divide both sides by 43. And luckily this division comes out pretty nicely. I get n by itself equals negative 43 over 43 is negative 1. And just going back to fill in my steps, that was division property. And simplifying that division. All right, there's a couple more problems on the next page, page 88. But for a moment, I want to pause and go over the steps that I'm doing for each of these problems. So there's two problems on page 48, 7 and 8. We'll get to those in a moment. But for right now, I'd like you to take a look at the space below below number 8. There's this blank space. you to write down these steps for multi-step equations. So solving multi-step equations. Because each of these problems, I'm doing the same 3 things each time. I first start by simplifying each side of the equal sign individually. So simplify the left side and right side. And by side, I mean the side of the equal sign. So that's looking for things like parentheses. That's looking for things like terms that you can combine. So I'll actually put that over here, that this is parentheses. Did I spell that right? Yeah. And like terms. So those are the things that you're looking for on each side. Once everything's simplified on each side, the second thing that I look for is variables on both sides of the equal sign. When there's variables on both sides, there's no way you can get the variable by itself. You want all the variables in one spot. So you need to deal with that next. And then the last thing you need to do, once the variables are all in the same place, then you can work on isolating the variable. And that means you're adding things to both sides, you're dividing things on both sides, doing whatever you need to do to get rid of the numbers that are near the variable so that you get x equals or n equals. You get that variable all by itself. And those are pretty much the 3 steps for solving a multi-step equation. Now some of these steps might take multiple steps, like if you have parentheses and like terms, that might take a couple of steps to get this one done. It might take a couple of steps to isolate the variable. But this is kind of the general pattern that you want to follow. All right, let's go back to number 7 and number 8, now that we know that those are the steps we want to follow. Number 7, 6y minus parentheses 3y minus 6 equals negative 14 plus 3. The first thing that I'm supposed to look for is simplifying the left side and the right side. So if I look at the left side, that is for sure not simplified. I have parentheses there. I have like terms there. So I'm going to have to do some work to simplify that. If I look at the right side, that is also not simplified. I have some like terms, negative 14 plus 3. I can definitely simplify those. So I have some work to do to start off. First thing I'm going to deal with is these parentheses. I would like to get rid of these parentheses by distributing, well, there's no number that's right in front of the parentheses being multiplied. In reality, the number being multiplied by this is negative 1. So what I'm kind of distributing here is the minus. I'm going to distribute minus to 3y and minus to negative 6. So I have 6y. 3y is positive, but when I distribute that minus sign, it's going to become minus 3y. And the 6, this is minus 6, but when I distribute the minus, minus cancels, and I'm going to get plus 6. And I'm going to leave negative 14 plus 3 as is for right now, because the step that I just did was distributive property. All right, so let me take another look at both sides of the equation. Left side, is that fully simplified? Oops. Sorry about the bell. All right, this is not fully simplified. I still have like terms. Right side of the equation, again, not fully simplified. I have like terms there. So my next step is going to be combine like terms. I'm going to combine the like terms on each side. So on the left side, the like terms that I have are 6y and minus 3y. Those combine to 3y. Still have plus 6. On the right side, the like terms I have are negative 14 and plus 3. Negative 14 and positive 3 combine to negative 11. All right, so looking back at my steps, simplify left side and right side, looks like that is done. I'm done with all the parentheses and all the like terms. Number 2, variables on both sides. We do not have variables on both sides. The only place we have variables is 3y, so that one's actually done. Last step is to isolate the variable. All right, so I have 3 times y plus 6. I need to get the y by itself, so now I'm going to do minus 6 to both sides to get rid of the plus 6. That is subtraction property. Plus 6 minus 6 cancels. I end up with 3y equals, I need to simplify negative 11 and negative 6 combine to negative 17. And my very last step in getting the variable by itself will be to divide both sides by 3 to get rid of that coefficient. So 3 and 3 cancel. This is division property. And then the last step will be to simplify this division. But wait a minute, I get y equals, but 3 doesn't go into 17. Uh-oh. That's okay. That just means that our answer is a fraction. So I'm just going to write my fraction as negative 17 thirds. And we'll just leave it as that. Number 8, last one we'll do here. On number 8, first thing is simplify the left side and the right side. If I take a look at the left side of this equal sign, I have parentheses. I don't want parentheses. So I can get rid of those parentheses by using the distributive property. However, 1/5? Yuck. I don't want to be multiplying by 1/5. I don't want to multiply 2 by 1/5. That's going to be terrible. So another method that you could use here, especially when you have fractions, is you can multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 1/5. So I'm going to use that strategy this time. So I'm going to multiply everything in this equation by 5. So I'm going to multiply this side by 5. I'm going to multiply everything on the right side by 5. I'll write that step over here. This is multiply by reciprocal. And then I'm going to simplify that multiplication. The 5 times 1/5 totally cancels out. That's gone. Boom, boom. That leaves me on the left side with 2x minus 5. Way better. On the right side, now I have to distribute 5. So 5 times 3x is 15x. 5 times 7 is 35. So I have bigger numbers here because of the multiplication, but at least I don't have a fraction to deal with. All right, now let's check. Left side. Left side of the equal sign is simplified. There are no parentheses, no like terms. Right side of the equation is simplified. There are no parentheses, no like terms. So the next thing I need to deal with, if I take a look at my steps, is variables on both sides. In this problem, we do have variables on both sides, 2x and 15x. To simplify that, I will subtract 2x from each side to get rid of that 2x. That is using subtraction property. After that, I'm left with minus 5 equals, I need to simplify 15x minus 2x is 13x. Still have plus 35. All right, my variables on both sides are taken care of. Now there's only one variable in one spot. So now I need to work on getting that variable by itself. I can do that by subtracting 35 from both sides. Minus 35 minus 35. That is subtraction property. Plus 35 minus 35 cancels out. That's our goal. On the left side, we have negative 5 minus 35. That would be negative 40. I simplified that. And on the right side, I have 13x. Very last step to get rid of the 13. Divide by 13, divide by 13. This is division property. That I can divide both sides of the equation by the same number, and it doesn't actually change the equation. It's just moving things around. I'm going to cancel those 13s, so I have x by itself. That's good. And 13 doesn't go into 40, so I'll just leave my answer as this fraction, negative 40 13ths. And I did that by simplifying. All right, those are our examples. Your classwork right now is to turn to page 91. So you're actually going to skip the page 89 and 90. So you're going to flip over and go to page 91. Looks like this. And solve these 8 problems. When you solve those 8 problems, come get a stamp from me. All right.